Hey guys,
I'm Hallee,
and I'm Jamie.
and this is Literal Nonsense.
Hey guys, welcome back to Literal Nonsense Podcast.
Welcome back!
We are on episode 9. I think we sound a little bit fucked up. Like, our voices might be a little bit gone. We had a fantastic time in Scottsdale,
Amazing. Great time.
to say the least.
You had to be there, honestly.
We're tired. We're so tired.
Yeah, literally crawling around like a creature.
It's like soul weariness.
Yeah.
Like, my soul hurts. We're also recording 2 days after we got home.
Yeah.
So we're going through it, but
we're going ham.
Right. But we also could not give you content on our strict schedule weekly.
True.
So here we are.
Meet me in the crib. It's going down. Meet me in the club. It's going down.
Yeah, you guys should be proud of our dedication to you. So anyway, here we are. We are going to be talking about A Court of Silver Flames today. We decided that we're going to be doing this book in 2 parts, quite frankly, because we're over this fucking series.
What great podcasters we are. Fuck this shit.
I do love this series. I just think I've had enough.
Well, at this point, we've read it like 5 times.
Right, like doing the notes for it and stuff, I'm like, okay, I'm done.
This counts as a reread, you know?
Right. But this book, honestly, we did like a lot on our second reread, so we're excited to talk about it. So this part is part 1. We will be discussing chapters 1 through 39, pages 1 through 141. We actually do like this book a lot for...
Now we do.
Yeah, hating it so much the first time.
Yeah. We've come a long way.
Yeah, so we're ready to get into this book. Again, it's going to be a Nesta book, so it is interesting.
Very.
Basically, so just as a little recap, I feel like we haven't talked about this in forever, but really it hasn't been that long for anyone else besides for us.
Seriously.
So we left off with our cute little Christmas book. We found out that Nesta's going through it. She's being a bitch to everyone. We know there's unrest with the Illyrian war camps. We know that Feyre all of a sudden wants to have a baby now.
Boom.
That's pretty much the only recap we need, right?
Yeah.
Before we get into it?
Yeah.
Okay, great. And so this book begins, and Nesta is having a cauldron flashback when she was dunked in that bitch, and she's just having a hard time. And so it's been 9 months since that solstice book, and essentially in those 9 months, Nesta's just drinking, fucking, and being a bitch to everyone.
Yeah, she's really
That's it.
She's going down that spiral of self-isolation and what's that word?
Depression?
No. It's like that book, The Mountain Is You. What is that book about?
Couldn't tell you.
Self
hatred?
No. No, it's like sabotage.
Oh.
God, that took a while.
Our brains are not working.
No, and it's even worse because I had to write a fucking 10-page paper.
That is worse, yes.
And I spent literally the day we came back, I spent the whole day editing it.
Yeah. You're looking at me like you're crazy. Your eyes are psychotic. Yeah, okay. So basically Nesta's just being a total bitch. And that is where our book kicks off. We don't really know what's happening with anyone else yet.
No.
But we'll get there.
Yeah, so Nesta. What are you doing, girly? So basically, Cassian pulls up real quick to her apartment, her seedy little disgusting apartment.
Yeah, he was sent to go get her.
Yeah. And he comes in and Nesta opens the door like through like a little crack because the door stopper's still on it.
Yeah.
She's like, "What are you doing here?" And so basically he was like, "You're coming with me." And they have some exchange of words. Doesn't go very well. And he's like, "Oh, and by the way, tell that male to get out of your bed and leave the apartment." And she's like, "What?" Like,
and the guy's like crawling out the fucking window and shit.
He was like, was that? And she's like, "Leave."
Right, because everyone's like scared of the inner circle. Not scared, but like they're like, don't fuck with him.
Yeah.
You know? So this guy's like, ooh, that's a 6'5" hunky man in that doorway, and I don't want to mess with him.
I don't want no part of that.
Right.
So whatever, she tells Cassian, okay, wait outside, like I'll be out. So she goes to take a shower because she hasn't done that in a few days. She reeks of drugs, alcohol, and sex. Well,
Sounds
maybe
like a
not
good time.
drugs, but we'll just lop it in there because it sounds right.
Yeah, it sounds good. I support it. Like, I'm like, yeah. Do they even have drugs in this world?
I don't know.
If they do, she's doing them.
Because that's the thing, right? It's like when they were still mortals, and say, for example, Pharaoh was drinking the fairy wine, like obviously that bitch was drugged. Like there was something in
Yeah,
there.
like we said, there's LSD. Like, she was for sure tripping.
Yeah, but I don't think it's like that for when they're Fae.
So they have no drugs. That's just like a bummer.
Uh, Unless maybe Sarah J. Maas isn't like a fan of drugs or.
No, think of Crescent City. They're smoking fucking
Oh,
shit.
yeah. Birth root.
Yeah, they're getting high as shit.
Maybe just in Prithian, they haven't evolved to that
Right,
level.
which is so sad.
Well, because they're like,
Yeah, they're like old timey.
yeah, like it's
Well,
very medievally.
you're lame. No drugs.
Anyways, so she's trying to get herself together before she has to see everybody in the inner circle. And we kind of get like a glimpse into like how fucked up she is because she's like in the bathtub and she's like having a freak out and like she won't turn the fireplace on, so it's like freezing in there and it's just like a mess. It's not a good time.
Yeah, no, she's like freaking out about everything. She's thinking about her dad. She's just not having a good time. But finally, they do get her to the estate. So she gets there. And she's like just mad to be there. And they literally freak out at her. And they're like, that's it. You're done. This behavior, fucking done. And she's like, what? Like, Jesus. But mind you, so like, here's my thing with this Nesta clearly is a bitch all the time.
Yeah.
So, like, was this the way to do this?
I mean, I believe in tough love.
Mm-hmm.
I think that some people really need it.
Well, right. And at this point, it's been 9 months since Solstice, and she's been being a bitch before that. So it's been like over a year.
Yeah, and they mention in the book, like a little bit like after this, basically. And Feyre's like, we hoped that you would turn your life around. Like if we gave you some time, you would, finally come around and you weren't doing that. So like now we have to intervene.
Which, yeah. So, I mean, again, my thought is this I don't think that she's going to react well to them being like, you're done. But at the same time, she's not reacting well to anything else and like giving her space
Yeah.
either. And they're not going to just let this girl fucking ruin her life and like be gross forever.
Yeah.
But then again, like, I feel like, I don't know who says it, but at one point they're like, a year for a fae is like a day.
Yeah.
Like you live forever. So eventually she'd get over it.
Yeah, I don't think, but I mean, I don't think they thought that going into this that she would have a good reaction.
No.
I think they obviously expected the worst,
Which, yep.
which, kind of happens, but like, shit, fucking intervene for that bitch.
Right. And so they basically tell her that she has to train and work in the library up at the House of Wind. And that's like her not punishment, but that's like you need to have like structure in your life. Like, here's what
Yeah.
you're doing.
Exactly. Like you're not, sleeping all day and going out at night partying kind of thing. And it's funny because even Amryn is like, yeah, girl, you're gonna do this or your your ass is going to the mortal lands. Like we're
Yeah.
throwing you with the humans.
Yeah, they gave her like two options, and they were like, you either do this, or we like literally are sending you as far away from us as humanly
Yeah.
possible.
And like things are still kind of up in the air with the humans. So
Mm-hmm.
like I think Nesta realizes like she's gonna be a pariah there. And I think that is worse than the alternative of isolating herself from everyone.
Well, and also like I think we mentioned this one of the last episodes, Nesta's doing all this, and they're bankrolling it all.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like, fuck you, Nesta. Do you
Yeah.
think they're gonna just keep doing this forever and just paying for you to fuck random strangers?
And that's the thing too, is that I don't know when in the book it's said, but like Feyre is talking to Nesta and she was like, how do you think this makes us look? That like you're going out, like obviously you're my sister and we're supposed to be like the head of Valaris and you're out here spending all of this money on alcohol. Like people see you leaving with men. Like, what are you doing?
Like, you could have a good time, but at this point, you're chaotic.
You're just trashy.
Right. Yeah. You're just a fucking human trash bag. And so obviously Nesta, as we said, super resentful, is not happy about this. But at the end, she does go to the House of Wind. she's also mentioning as she's being like literally packed up. They even told her, they were like, we're
While she's
packing.
being packed up.
Yeah, but they're like, we're packing up your shit, which is like
They sent
two
Elaine to
things.
do it.
Well, yeah, but they also say we're going to condemn the building. Like,
Oh,
they're like, you literally can't go back there because it's being condemned. So fuck you. Um, but so as Nessa's being packed up, she's like reflecting about, she's kind of also mad at Elaine right now because Elaine was like the fucking, I don't even know how to describe her, like the piece of paper in the corner,
yeah.
like sitting, staring out a window. And Nesta was only out of breath.
What?
I was talking and I couldn't breathe. I literally was like, oh my god, sorry. Anyways,
Jesus. Or do you have asthma?
I might.
Someone get this bitch an inhaler.
Anyway, so Nesta's like, oh, like Elaine used to suck, and now she's like all involved in the group. Like, fuck you, Elaine. So Nesta's like also mad at her, just simply for the fact of like adapting,
Yeah.
which is
There's
ridiculous.
like some resentment there for sure.
Right.
And that's crazy because not only does she, like Elaine was like her person, like she would go to bat for Elaine every single time. Like she was almost a mother figure to her, and now she's
Well,
like, I fucking hate you too.
that's probably why she's so mad because she's like, damn, like Elaine's not going to bat for me. Elaine's like, see you later. Like,
Yeah,
so she's probably like, damn, where's our fucking solidarity?
yeah,
Which I get. And so Ness is being sent to the House of Wind. She is also being sent with Cassian and Azriel. So Cassian's job is to train her to make sure she's all good. And then Azriel will also be staying there when he's not on his spy missions. So he'll be around, but not like full time.
yeah. He's not like involved.
Right, like he has no part of Nesta.
No
He's just there, like living there, and they're like, "Hey, go be like a third chaperone." Like
chaperone.
they literally call him a chaperone, which is so cute. We actually do get a lot of fun Azrael moments. This book, we'll talk a lot about this episode.
His uh, his little one-liners are just great.
His banter is so cheeky.
It is. So also Cassian is chosen to be a diplomat, basically.
Yes.
In regards to Eris specifically, who's the Autumn Court heir, and also like while he's supposed to be watching Nesta, essentially. So basically, he's like a dignitary. Like he has to like play the role of like kind of like a sneaky, court player kind of thing.
And
Which
he's like nervous about this.
yeah, because he's never had to do that before. Like Cassian is all like muscle and like strength. And like whereas like Rhys is the diplomat. Like don't get me wrong, like obviously he's fit and stuff, but
Like Rhys is definitely like,
he knows how to play the game.
yeah, and like I also just imagine not that like physical attributes relate to like mental capacity, but Cassian's like the biggest beefy one for sure.
Yeah. Which is usually attributed to being dumb as rocks.
And I think Ryan's kind of smart. I feel
Book smart or like life smart?
like both, unfortunately.
Really? Anyways, Ryan, who is Jamie's fiance, is great. Okay, we get it. She's in love. They're in love. We went on a bachelorette trip. Whatever.
Okay. Anyway,
Yeah. Anyway, so Cassian's diplomat and Moore is also going to the continent in Valahan, and she's trying to like rewrite the treaty with the people there. But it's not really going that well, so that's unfortunate. And Rhys and Feyre are like, sorry, y'all, like you got to figure it out. We have Valaris to take care of.
right, and that's kind of why Cassian and Azriel get stuck with Nesta because everyone else is occupied. And also having this plot set up that Moore is going to Valahan. We don't see more of this entire book, honestly.
No.
Very little. I'm really curious to see how that shakes out in future books in the series.
Well, hopefully in the next book, like she will talk about it.
Right. So yeah, so just as you guys going into this know, Moore is really not in this book at all. And so we also then, after we kind of get all of our plot set up where everyone's going to be, we get a glimpse into Nesta and her mom. So her mom essentially used Nesta as like a bargaining chip, always. She told Nesta, literally the exact quote was that Nesta was going to be wed for conquest, and she calls her cunning little queen. Weird. Also, weird. I know that the humans have mortal queens, but just comes off like very fey.
Yes.
Weird verbiage.
Well, this is a thing, right? So like Mama Archeron's back. Well, she's not like back, but like she's brought up she's brought up again. And the context seems like very Faye.
It does. And then after that original quote, she always would refer to her, and even on her deathbed, Nesta says and said, "My Nesta, my queen." What's going on? This is weird. Like, it wasn't like an empowering, like, my queen. Like, it was definitely like
Mm-hmm.
a little like diabolical sense you're getting from this. So again, we just wanted to mention it because interesting.
Which is also to the point that, like, they're not like lords of like land in the
No,
human realms. Like their dad is just a merchant. Like they just got money. And like obviously they're going to like these Bridgerton balls like to find their husbands, but it's not like they are royalty.
no.
So the fact that like that is such a prevalent aspect, I think is such like a big Easter egg.
Yeah. So again, we don't really know, so we'll see. And then so Cassian, they get to the House of Wind, they get settled. Okay, great. We're gonna go training Nesta. Cassian brings Nesta to Windhaven, which is the Illyrian war camp, and she refuses to train and makes him look like an absolute fool in front of everyone. Like
Yeah.
she sits on a rock and she's like, "I'm not fucking doing this." And he
She
literally,
literally plants her ass on the rock
yes,
and she's
and
like, I'm not doing anything.
yeah, she literally says to him, like, "I don't care how foolish you look, like whatever is what it is."
Well, it's hard because like the Illyrians are sitting there watching them.
And Cassian's their general, and now
Yeah.
this fucking tiny little woman is like going toe to toe with him, so it makes him seem really bad, and she knows that, and she does not give a fuck. But what's really interesting is, as bitchy as she's being to him, and as mean as she's being to him, she still like is drawn to him. So this quote, which I just like, is she'd never been able to look away from him. From the moment they'd met, she developed a keen awareness of his presence in any space, any room. So again, I know I'm like hot. But again, like she's being a bitch to him, but she doesn't actually hate him in
No.
any capacity.
No.
Which is crazy that you can act that way to someone like you don't actually hate, but whatever.
She's like very confusing. Like
I
this is
think
the thing
she's
about Nesta is like
I think she's
she
severely depressed and selfish.
yeah.
And that combination is not great.
No, it's not. It's actually terrible. Terrible spot to be in.
Yeah, and so Cassian basically begins his dignitary duty and he winnows. Where did he even go? I don't even know. Oh, they go to the human realm. So they're at the manor there. So Jurian's there, Vasa's there, and Lucian, because they're still doing their little band of bullshit.
Oh yeah.
And
Band
so
of Exiles.
yes. And so Eris is also there. And so when they're there, we find out from this little meeting that there is distress across the sea with the queens. There's unrest. There's also some Autumn Court soldiers missing.
Dun
Now,
dun
yeah, so we're
dun.
like, so that's gonna be our two big plot points this book for sure.
That's like the first spooky thing.
Yeah, spooky. And so while we're having this meeting, we do learn this vital information, but we also learn that Cassian is not fucking good at this job. Like he has like no poker face. He's just like blurting shit out. It's not like he's like doing anything that's gonna wreck like the entire operation. He just isn't great at like playing the game.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Like
it's
the
nothing.
like a wordsmith, like he's not good with that.
No,
He's like very blunt and just
and I think he's hard on himself because he even afterwards reflects and he's like, ugh, like I just feel like I am a brute. Like this is all I'm good for is killing. And
yeah.
I think he's been told that his whole life so long that he really internalizes that, which breaks my heart.
Mm-hmm.
But he honestly hasn't had any practice in this, so why would you be good at it?
Yeah.
You
I
know,
just had deja vu.
we're going through it this episode.
Holy cow, that was really spooky.
I'm sorry, but it's your point next, so go ahead.
So also at this meeting, we learn of Koshai,
Mhm.
however you want to say his name. We learn he's a death god, and he's the one who is bound to the lake where one of the queen is. What's her name?
Well, Vasa,
Vasa.
but even though she's here now, she's on like a little like reprieve.
Yeah, she's like she can come out during the day, but like not at
No, I'm
night or
saying I think
something.
she's still in the manor with Jurian and
Oh, she
Lucian.
is.
I think that she had like a little like retreat. Like they're like he's like kind of like you could stay for a little bit.
Oh, okay.
But yes,
Or
same.
maybe because he's busy. Okay, so anyways, we learn that he has made a alliance. Do you want to make an alliance with me?
Oh my god,
What's that show? What's the show?
Survivor.
The fact that you said that so confidently and you're so wrong.
What show?
The Office.
Oh no, I was thinking like Alliance and Survivor for sure.
Dwight says it to Jim, I think. And he's like, or no, he says it to Pam, and she's like, absolutely, I do.
Well, Survivor was also the right answer.
No, you're wrong. Anyways. Sorry, that was ridiculous. Anyways, if you didn't know that was an Office reference, fucking do your research.
Or a Survivor reference. Doesn't matter.
No, don't listen to Jamie.
Pick your camp.
Okay, let me just fucking get to this point. Okay, so Koshi, he runs the lake. He lives there. Vasa was his prisoner, but she's off doing her thing. But Koshi has an alliance with Brylan, which is one of the queens. And I'm
Yes.
pretty sure that's like the old crone one, like
I
the one who
believe,
got turned
yes.
into a crone. So she's hella pissed. She's like, we're taking him down. I'm fucking old as hell. I'm an old hag, and this is not how things were supposed to pan out. So she's pissed. So they're in an alliance, and then we also find out from Eris that the Autumn Court High Lord Baron is also in on this alliance. So people are fucking. They're gonna fuck shit
And
up.
there's like a lot of like speculation at this point too, right? So it's like they're like, oh, because it's Eris's personal soldiers who went missing. So they're like, does this relate to like Kyoshi and Brylan and all that stuff? Like we're not sure, but there's speculation that this is all involved. Like something is happening, and all the things they think relate to each other.
Exactly.
And so the reason why Eris is even here is Eris is on our side now. We kind of knew that last book ish, our side. And he wants an alliance with us because he wants the throne, which we knew he was pining after, but now he's like making moves to make that happen.
He's itching.
And we also learn, so we know that Brylan, as Hallee just said, is with Kyoshi. We learned that Brylan has, I think I'm gonna say it this whole episode.
That's like Avatar.
Yeah.
Kyoshi Island.
Right, Avatar Kyoshi. I'm gonna say it like that because I just simply refuse not to. So, okay. Koshi, Kyoshi. It's like really fucking close, guys. So whatever. I'm also watching Avatar again, so it is what it is.
It's a switch up.
We learned that Brylan is allied with Baron, like for sure. Like Baron's like, cool, I'll give you the humans, like my armies and stuff. So Baron's being a sneaky fucking asshole, which is like annoying. So we're also like on Eris' side. I'm totally down for Eris to take.
I'm always down. I'm always on Eris' side.
And so that's what's happening there. So then Cassian, again, didn't do great, but he's fine. He didn't like ruin anything. And so now Nesta is so fucking pissed she's in this house that she tries to go down the stairs. This is going to be a huge plot point. The only way to get out of the House of Wind is to fly or winnow or walk up or down the 10,000 stairs.
No, you can't winnow into the House of Wind.
You can't?
Okay, so winnow, there's like a shield around.
Oh, so like outside, then you have to fly the rest.
Yes.
You're right, yes. Okay, so you can only fly in like with wings or fucking walk down and up these 10,000 stairs. So Nesta's like, I'm going to try it. Like, why you think that after not eating and just living on a liquid diet, you could do this? But pop off, queen. And so she does her first attempt and she gets down 111 stairs. So not good.
Bad.
And so she's miserable, but she's like, I literally can't do this. So she goes back upstairs, whatever. So the next morning, Azriel checks in with Cassian at breakfast and just hears like Nesta like fucking raging and just being a bitch. And he basically tells Cassian, like, you are absolutely fucked. Like, you're just fucked. Like, this is like the impossible mission. Like, have a good time. And then so at that point, because of all the information that Cassian learned, we also find out that Azriel is starting to spy on Brylan and like find out more. Like, we kind of have a general idea, but like, what's she up to?
He's trying to see what his shadows will whisper to him.
Right.
So back to some Nesta and Cassian. They try to go again to Windhaven, and Nesta refuses again to train. Shocker. So she's like, fuck this, I'm gonna walk around the town. So she's like, la 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 la. She ends up in the shop where Emery works, which is a throwback to the last book where Cassian makes that point, like, oh, like I wonder how the two of them would be if they ever met. Well, guess what? They met, bitches. And they're like fine. It's like a fine conversation.
Yeah, they're like nothing like substantial, but they like chit chat.
Yeah, but I think like Nesta like liked her, which is strange because Nesta doesn't like anyone, right? But because she sucks. And then they go back to the House of Wind, and Nesta's in the library because now she has to put away books, and we meet this one. we meet this one priestess. Her name is Gwen. And Gwen's like super friendly, redhead, super cute, and she's kind of like all up in Nessa's business. And Nessa's
Yeah,
like,
like fiery, but like she's like soft, but like fiery as
yeah,
well.
like very bubbly.
Yeah, bubbly, but also like has a little spunk,
Yeah,
sass.
a little sassy. Yeah, like she can take it and dish it out for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, and so they meet, and Gwen is going to be a player in this game.
And as we remember, just as a little recap, the library is full of the priestesses who have been like sexually assaulted or
Yes.
violently attacked or whatever. So Gwen is like one of those priestesses.
Yeah. And we also see, which was interesting, when she's at the library, the house sends her food, right? Like soup
Mm-hmm.
or something. What's with this fucking soup showing up everywhere?
It's comforting.
I guess so. Um, but like the house is like watching out after Nesta.
Yeah, it's like looking out for her, it's interacting with her, which we haven't really seen. So we're kind of like, this is an interesting, like, fun little
Mhm.
magical aspect. Like, as we said, this book definitely gets a lot more magical than the last
Yeah,
books.
and it's noted multiple times, and I think multiple different people say it, like, "Oh, this is like weird that the house like interacts with you, but no one else."
Yeah, so keep that in mind. And so we actually do see Nesta beginning to eat after her library work. She's pretty tired again because it may seem like simple work, but she really hasn't done shit for like a year, so she's exhausted. But she's actually eating, which again is kind of like a big step because in Frost and Starlight, it was mentioned like she would go days and just be like, "Oh, I forgot to eat." So she's like feeling hungry. She has the desire to eat, which is like even that simple change is a change in her.
Yeah,
Um, she also tells Cassian about the house giving her things, and as Hallie mentioned, he's like, "Why is it doing that? Like,
yeah,
it doesn't do that for us, you know?" And she's like, "Oh, I thought it did that for all of you guys." Um, she's still refusing training. That hasn't changed. She's going to the library at least, so it's like you're doing half of your job. I don't
yeah.
know. And she isn't training, but as she goes to sleep, she's keeping having nightmares. So again, very similar to how Feyre's little journey went, having nightmares are like plaguing her. But Nesta responds differently in the sense that she needs to like get it out aggressively or physically. And so she tries the stairs again, of course, does not fucking do it. And she trips and starts falling down the stairs and like catches herself and like burns a handprint into like the stone,
Yeah.
and it's like part of her like fire, like
Spooky.
power. So we're getting like a little sense. Okay, Nesta still has powers. We don't really know what they are yet, but like this is still super relevant. So yeah, super spooky. And then she like walks back up, and she's like, "Fuck, this sucks.
Yeah. Does suck.
Does suck."
Um, and at this point, like Cassian's like pretty fed up. He's like, I'm bringing her every day to Windhaven, and she ain't doing shit, right? So he's like, fuck this. So he goes to the house where like Feyre and Rhys are, and he's like, this is it. Like I can't do this anymore. Like she's the devil's spawn. And at this point, Cassian's kind of like, wait a second, because Feyre has a shield around her while he's speaking to her, and he's like, what? Like, what's with this shield? And Rhys like plays it off, and he was like,
Like we're
oh
practicing.
yeah, like something with like Helion,
Yeah,
right?
Helion tosses like fun new tricks. We're just like seeing if it works.
Yeah, so like totally plays it off, but suspicious.
Hmm.
And then after he talks with them, he's like, all right, fine, I'll try one more time, and if it doesn't work out, then
Well, and it's because he
you're lost.
sees Feyre and he's like, I remember how fucked up she was when she came to us.
Yeah,
And like now she's like legit high lady and like glowing and so happy. And he's like, fuck.
yeah,
He's like, damn, like maybe someone just needs to help her, you know?
yeah,
So he's like, all right, once more. And then I don't care if you're depressed. Like,
yeah.
see you later. And so the next day, there's no one to winnow them to Windhaven. So they're going to train at the house. Now, that's what Cassian tells Nesta. That could be true. But he also then, after he tells Nesta that, has like an internal dialogue and he's like, "Oh my god, I'm so stupid. Of course Nesta won't train there. Like she will legit face the King of Hybern, but if she even is risking feeling stupid, her pride will not let her. Like
Mhm.
she literally will sit there and freeze her ass off just to like protect her pride."
And I feel like that's very diplomatic thinking.
Yeah, right. Good job, Cassian.
Yeah.
So you're actually great at your job.
Woo woo.
Um, and so he's like, of course she won't train here. So we're gonna train like at the House of Wind by ourselves. And so he brings her up to like the roof training pit type thing. And they actually make a bargain because these bitches love bargains. And
Everybody's making a bargain.
they say if she trains, he will owe her a favor of any size whenever she wants it. So he's like, I'm totally fucked, but it'll work.
Yeah.
Like, whatever. And so interesting, their bargain is marked by an 8-pointed star tattoo on them.
Hmm.
We'll talk a lot about 8-pointed stars in Crescent City. There's more in this book too, I think, at the prison. So we'll get into that. But just so we know that it's popping up already, keep that in mind. And so they begin training, and literally it's just balancing and like wiggling her toes. And this bitch is sweating and sore as fuck. And I'm like, you are pathetic, actually. So it's really funny because she's like, oh
First
shit.
day back at the gym.
Yeah, like she's like,
What are you
shit.
doing? Just wiggling my toes.
Yeah, pathetic. Um, and then she actually ends up training a second hour, and she's like, oh shit, like, or no, he says to her, like, oh, you trained a second hour, like, what other bargain do you want? And she's like, no, it's on the house. So you can see her, like, even just by doing 1 hour of like balancing, like, she's like, oh, like, I'm kind of not minding this.
Hmm.
Which I'm like, yeah, you stubborn asshole. Like,
Yeah, she's
of
like
course
getting in
you're
the groove
not.
kind of thing.
Right. And then he tells her that no one hates her. Because I don't know why she brought it up, but he was like, Nesta, like, no one hates you. I guess because like they're all kind of standoffish to her. But I'm like, girl, you bring this on yourself. You're such a bitch to everyone. And then so he says, we don't hate you. I don't hate you. And then she like looks at him all quiet and says, and I have never hated you, Cassian. And you're like, okay. Which,
Oh,
like, of course you can't because he's fucking so nice. That's
yeah,
never the issue, Nesta. It's that you're a bitch.
yeah.
Anyways,
You're the issue,
right.
Nesta.
You are the issue. But fine.
This man is just trying to help you.
Yeah. So,
Crazy. Um, so to go along, we get some a little inside scoop on the priestesses. Well,
mhm.
one in particular. So Gwen is telling Nesta, she was like, "Oh my god, like my boss, her name is Meryl. Um, she asked for a list of books, and I accidentally gave her one of the wrong books.
And she's going to
And
lose her shit.
yeah, and if Meryl sees that Gwen fucked up, like her head is on a chopping block, like she's fucked.
Right.
And so Nessa's
Nesta's
like,
like, yeah, who's Meryl? She's like, what the fuck's up with this lady?
yeah. So basically, um, Gwen tells her, she's like, oh, like Meryl's like a researcher, right? So when she first came here, the book says that she was obsessed with theories regarding the existence of different realms. Red flag, different worlds, living on top of each other without even knowing it, whether there is merely one existence, our existence, or if it might be possible for worlds to overlap, occupying the same space, but separated by time and a whole bunch of other things.
Hello.
Come on now, multiverse. And then she also goes on to say some philosophers believe that there are 11 worlds like that, and some believe there are as many as 26.
Right. So, like, don't know if those numbers are relevant yet. I mean, who knows? I'm sure we'll find out. But,
Like
like, the fact
this
that this is even a thing.
this is page 154 in the book, like way in the beginning. And Sarah J. Maas is like, oh, let me just drop this one here for everyone.
Well, and like we kind of said a little bit in the last book, this book, we hated the plot in the beginning, right? Like, we were like, the plot with like, there's an Illyrian plot and there's all these plots. And we were like, these are like random and feel weird.
Yeah.
But when you read Crescent City and you're introduced to the multiverse, this book is fucking insane. So why we're pointing out these quotes now is because, again, page 151, already we're getting super set up into the fact that, like, okay, this is like where this world is going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And also in that same breath, we find out that currently what Meryl is researching is this group of warriors called the Valkyrie. Um, and they're like an all women warrior band who like really just tore shit down. Like they were boss bitches. And which is important to know because the rest of the book is kind of centered around like their ideology.
Hmm.
So it's like
And
our first little taste.
yes. And so we learned those two information, which again, I like how SJM does it. Like, oh, she's researching this, but it gives us a way to like learn new things.
Yeah.
So well done. And so Nesta's still training. She's actually listening to Cassian, which is like fucking shocking.
Yeah.
Um, and so Cassian and Rhys go to Spring Court and they meet up with Eris. So now basically they're like debating, like, should we just fucking take out these queens? Like, should we just fucking kill them? And Cassian's like, when did we decide this? And he's like shocked. And they're like, well, if we do it like very well done, no one will know, which is like a crazy ideology, but whatever. And so basically, the main point they keep meeting with Eris is their main thought, their main goal right now is to find out what Braylon wants and if Kyoshi is definitely involved with her. Like, we know that he's involved in some sense, but like how do they even link up? How are they related? And we also want to know what Baron's role is. So we also get some pretty intense illusion here. Um, so we basically need to know, we want to find a way to deal with Braylon, find out what she wants and why, discover whether Kyoshi is indeed involved, and at best we'll stop them all. Okay, great. And so
I love when you say that. Like you like make a point and you're like, okay, great. And
but so we also at this point get some more fucking funky Eris stuff going on. So basically, Rhys is
Ooh.
like, "Ooh, Eris, you're quite the little traitor," which like they're kind of flirting, but whatever.
Into
and,
it.
and he's like, "I told you years ago what I wanted, High Lord." And Cassian's like, "Oh, to seize your father's throne, but why? Like, it's just like a power play. Like, what's the deal?" And he said, "For the same reason I left Morgan untouched at the border." And Cassian's like, "You left her to suffer and die." And he said, "Did I? Perhaps you should ask Morgan whether that is true. I think she finally knows the answer." And I'm like, what is going on? If I don't fucking find out this story with Morgan
I
and
know.
Eris, I'm going to lose my fucking mind.
I'm gonna be fucking pissed.
Right.
Need to know.
Need to know. Need to know immediately and right now. And so that's that little interaction. It was just important to mention because we kind of know what we're dealing with Brylan, but we're also like, Eris, you're a sneaky fuck. So what's going on with you?
Mhm. And then, so Nesta and Cassian have a conversation where like Nesta's talking to Cassian. She's like, I feel like this presence, like
In the library,
in
like it's
the
like stalking
library.
her. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're like talking about Bryaxis, but Bryaxis is not there. Is still gone.
He's dipped.
Our little friend hasn't returned.
Love him.
Um, and so they start having this conversation about like these other like the first gods and like these other monsters, and we learn about one called Lanthus, Lubia, Anise, like these whatever these monsters that I'm sure will make a reoccurrence at some point. Um, and he's asking Nesta like, "Oh, like maybe you're feeling this because of your power."
Right. Like, do you think the library is reacting to you specifically because of the power? I think he's trying to like dig a little and he's like, that power you won't talk about.
Yeah, because no one knows because she
Right.
hasn't said anything about
Right.
it.
Right.
And she hasn't really done anything either
Right.
to explore like what's going on
Mm-hmm.
also. Um and she like asks him like, "Oh, like even if I do have a power, like why does it matter? It doesn't matter," kind of thing. And Cassian's like, "No." And I think he makes like that statement of like, "I don't care if you took the whole cauldron or a drop of it." Like,
Yeah. Like, it wouldn't matter to me. And I think that's reassuring for her because I think in this case, it's almost like she knows she has a lot of power, I think. And I think
mhm,
she's like, I don't want to scare him. And that's why I think he made a good point and he did like a good job of being like, I don't care if you took a little or a lot, like neither one of those would scare me away. Like, I don't want you to have a lot for like power and I don't want you to have a little because too much would scare me. Like, I'm good either way. Like,
mhm,
you're you. And I think that comforts her.
yeah.
So, way to go, Cassian. Good job.
So like this is a thing, right? So they have these like intimate and vulnerable little moments here and there, but then they're also like not talking at the same time kind of thing. Like there's some loathing going on.
Yeah, but also at this point, we're starting to finally get like back into like the sexual tension.
This is true.
So I don't even know how this part comes up. It's like a page after they're talking about her powers, and he says, "The first time I saw that look on your face, you were still human, and I nearly went to my knees before you." And I'm like, "What the fuck?" Like, I mean, first of all,
Woo!
I would take my pants off right then. And then like they're talking more on like a few pages after that, and they're like training, and he's like, "Okay, we're time to do some core work." And she's like, "Core?" And he's like, "Abdominals?" Like, what the fuck? So like they're definitely like heads are both in the gutter,
Yeah, for
like
sure.
for sure. Um, yeah. So but also it's interesting to me how the sexual tension, this book in particular, really started after he pretty much was like, "Yeah, like I won't shy away from you."
Mm.
Like it's like almost like she needed like that to be like broken down.
Well, yeah, or she was just like maybe she just like needed that confirmation to like kind of go forward kind of thing.
Yeah, I guess that's what I'm saying. Like, right? Like she kind of wasn't down unless he like accepted her
Mhm.
or like wasn't scared of her. Yeah, so interesting. And then so they begin talking and we learn more about the blood right. So it was mentioned last book as well what the blood right was. Just to recap you, I will let you know. And so basically the blood right, it's when an Illyrian warrior is like in his full power and they send them off into the wilderness.
Bye bye.
Yeah, literally. And they have warriors from like all the clans, and they scatter them all across Illyria, and they leave them there for a week. And they have two goals: they have to just survive and also make it to Ramiel. She's like, "What's
Which is the
Ramiel?"
peak, yeah.
Yeah, and
Oh, sorry, I
basically,
didn't know you were gonna go into that.
oh yeah, I appreciate you. You're like my viewer in live. And he said our sacred mountain. He explains it's like the Night Court insignia. Again, as a reader, we kind of already know this, but I think SJM is refreshing us. And so the blood rite happens when the three stars are above the mountain, as we know. It's kind of like a mythical type of thing. We don't really know much about it. We'll get more into it later in the book. And so she's like, "Oh, you hiked the mountain?" He's like, "No, we kill our way there." Like they have to literally kill everyone. Um, they also are
Mass
dropped. Yeah,
destruction.
they're dropped into the wilderness with no powers. They're drugged. They have nothing but their clothes,
Yeah.
no weapons.
Their
Their
wings
limbs
are
are tied.
tied. Jenks, you owe me a
I
soda.
just drank my ginger ale.
Damn it. I would like a Coke, please.
Yum. And so he tells her, like, once you're there, you can't leave. Like, literally, you are not allowed to. No one can save you. If anyone breaks into the right, like, both of you get killed. Like, the law literally says, like, we'll hunt you down and fucking kill you. And, like, even Rhys wasn't allowed to break those laws. Like,
Mhm.
they were like, if you're doing this, like, you're in it. Like, sorry, buddy,
Yeah.
whatever. And so he says, basically, that, again, if you have siphons, those are controlled, all this stuff. Now, the night before the blood rite, um, the warlord leaders can winnow, which it's like they can't any other time of the year. So it's like a weird magical evening, right? And she said like, "Oh, Azrael can winnow," and he's like, "Well, Azrael's different." He's like, "Azrael's just a wild man," and so he just explains this whole process to her. Now he says there's different ranks, right? So if you survive, you're one rank. If you make it to the mountain, you're Oristinian,
Mm.
sure.
This is what we were talking about last
Yeah.
episode.
And if you get to the top of the mountain and touch that fancy monolith, you become Carinthian. Now, Cassian mentions, which again, don't know if this is relevant, but he says only three others have been Corinthian besides for the Bat Boys in the whole history. Now, two of those people died in the war against Hybern. So there's one Corinthian like warrior left. And I just find that interesting. Like, why didn't SJM just like kill off all of them? You know what I'm saying? It's just interesting as a point.
Easter egg.
Yeah, it's just interesting. Again, don't know if it's at all relevant, but I'm like, well, she left one. Why'd you leave one?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Interesting. Also in this story, he tells Nesta like females do not participate, and he's like, I think Moore would like win the whole thing. You know, he's like, it's not because you guys can't. It's just I also think he was like, you guys would face worse terrors, like meaning they'd be raped, all this
Yeah.
stuff. So yeah, females. Also, as we know, the Illyrian backward ass way of thinking are just not allowed. So that's fine. So now in this conversation, I guess Nesta sparked with an idea, and she asked Cassian if he will train the priestesses. I think she's starting to realize that she actually is feeling better
Yeah.
and like feeling like she could like defend herself and doesn't feel weak. And she's like, "Oh, would you train them to like give them empowerment and like get over their trauma?" And so it's interesting because Cassian's like, "Well, they probably won't say yes right away, or if at all." And he tells Nesta, like, keep reaching out your hand. And I think that's so interesting because that's the advice everyone's telling Cassian about
Yeah.
Nesta.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're like, just keep reaching out your hand, which of course it's easy for them to say because they're not fucking doing it. Like,
Yeah.
Amren's like, keep trying. Mind you, Amren, like, told Nesta to go fuck herself, basically.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting.
Well, yeah, it's like Cassian's problem now. Like they've pawned Nesta off on him.
But then
And
they're like, so quick to be like, keep trying.
yeah.
And I'm like, you fucking keep trying. The hell? I'd be like, screw all of you.
Yeah.
Give me all these awful jobs.
Everyone else can write her off, but
Not him.
no.
Right. So yeah, so just so we know,
It's giving like when Lucian was tasked to like watch Elaine.
yes. Well, and speaking of Elaine, she's back finally.
Yeah, so Elaine and Nesta have like a big fight, which is
Juicy.
crazy because like Elaine like never freaking speaks.
You know, Elaine's being sassy in this
No,
scene.
yeah, she is, and she basically brings up their dad, and Nesta loses it because obviously
Oh,
that
yes.
that is a big trigger for her.
Mhm.
And she feels like Elaine is choosing Feyre over her.
Right.
Kind of
Because like
thing.
she's kind of adopted into the family now.
Yeah,
And
so
Nesta's like, what the hell?
but she also isolated herself.
Right. Like she did to herself. I'm agreeing with you, but I'm
Like-
just saying like Nesta's feeling like definitely a little butthurt.
Yeah, but it's your fault, sis. Figure it out.
Right.
And Cassian's pissed that they have this fight.
Right, because Elaine comes in like crying and she's like, take me home. And he's like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah.
Like, can you just be nice for 5 seconds? He's like so over her.
Well, and that's the thing, right? Like they have this nice vulnerable moment. She's like, "Oh, train the priestesses," and he's like, "I'll train whoever comes." And then all of a
Right,
sudden, she's like, "Fuck you, Elaine," and he's like, "Bro, like calm
right.
down."
He's like, we were making progress.
Bipolar.
Well, and also I think Elaine, when she's crying, she like went to Cassie and was like, "I thought you said it was working," and he was like, "It fucking was!" Like he's like, "I don't know what's wrong with her."
So because they have this big blowout, Nesta needs to get this, energy out. So she goes to the stairs again. She makes it to 1,000. Okay, that's
1/10 of the way.
good job. Um, and again, we're thrown back into a vulnerable moment, and Cassian tells Nesta about his mom and
And she
how,
crawls back up the stairs. She's like waiting. He's like, "So my mom, here's my trauma." And you're
yeah,
like,
it's,
"Okay,
it's so weird.
they're weirdos."
Um, but yeah, so Cassian's mom was basically killed in her village, and
Yeah, and I think we learned that like in his mind last book when he like flies over
yeah,
it.
like she was
But
treated like shit,
yeah,
and as retribution, Cassian burned the whole village to the
yeah,
ground.
he tells Nesta this, which is kind of like vulnerable because you're like, "Oh, yep,
Well, I think he does it as a play to be like, like you're not the only one who has problems here, and we're all
yeah,
trying to get
right."
through it.
And
Like,
honestly, admittedly, not to be fucked up, I'm not saying depression is not like a real and like important thing, but Nesta, out of all of the inner circle one, right? Yeah, she became a fae. She had nothing in the human realms. Like Elaine had a fiance.
yeah.
Nesta had nothing. She's now being bankrolled. She's like super beautiful and living in a great city.
But do you think because her mom filled her head with like, you're gonna be a queen, my little queen, like hyped her the fuck up, and she hasn't amounted to anything?
Okay, but
Like,
like, go do it here now. Like, you have a better chance of doing that here than you did in the fucking hovel.
I mean,
I
yeah,
mean, what?
but I guess like it's just I don't know.
Again, I'm not saying that she shouldn't be depressed. Like, I know her dad died, all this stuff. But at the same time, like, you're also in this, like, great environment, and, like, everyone else has also dealt with, like, way worse.
Yeah,
So I'm mixed on it. I
yeah.
don't know.
Well, I'm mixed on how Cassian's talking about all his trauma, and then all of a sudden Nesta gives him head in the hallway.
No, this is, I think she just gives him a hand job. I think it's even worse than that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think he just literally comes from a hand job. And I think it's, like, through the genes. Like, I think it's not even, like, a real hand job.
Oh my god.
Right, which
Anyways,
is embarrassing.
I think it's hilarious how she's like, "Oh, a little quick off the mark, are we?"
I think that's, I think it's literally, I think this one's a hand job only.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. Which, wow,
Wait,
yeah.
reading that, you're like, "Oh my god!" And then Azriel comes and makes it even worse because he's like taunting Cassian about
Asriel
it.
comes in 24 fucking 7, and it's amazing. Hold on, I gotta find the exact quote because we're gonna do a bunch of Asriel quotes because he is fucking hysterical this entire book. So yeah, so I'm pretty sure again, like it was a hand job, almost positive.
Yeah.
Fucked up. And like part of me was like, you know me, I love Cassian. I was like, you just gave me the ick.
Yeah.
Like this big 6 foot man just came from a hand job through his pants. Oof. Fucking
Deprivation.
yeah, I'm like, all right, I need you to be a little bit more manly than that. So, anyways, so Azrael comes in and goes, "Did something happen that I, as your chaperone, should know about?" And he's like, "Fuck you," because like he knows. So yeah, Azrael, amazing. You're hysterical. Now, to
Love
get
you.
back after this book is honestly truly robbed with its vibes because you go from getting hand jobs in a staircase to like learning vital information.
It's
So
all over the place.
we're going to go back to our vital information. And so we learn about the dread trove, and we learn that Brylan is after it. So that's why we learn about what it is. And so we learn that the High Lord, so Baron, visited Brylan on the continent, and he's pledging his forces to her cause. So now confirmed, Baron is now with Brylan, and he is pledging his forces to her. Now he's saying basically the reason why he wants to do that is he will give her forces because then if she overcomes, and he can also strengthen his like lands and borders. Okay, fine. So he told Brylan about the Dread Trove. Now, what the Dread Trove is, the cauldron made objects of power. So now Amryn is telling us his history. She says when she went into the prison, only 3 of these objects remained. So the 3 objects in the Dread Trove are the mask, the harp, and the crown. So the mask is used to raise the dead. The harp is used to open doors. Now this could be regular doors or like metaphorical, like kind of like between world hint hint doors, or a crown which can influence all, like mind control can be used, to just really like fuck people up. Okay, so that's the Dread Trove. Now, important in this, we also hear from Amryn. At that time, Some claim there were 4 objects in the dread trove, but the 4th had been unmade or had vanished. Okay, this is
Ooh.
huge, huge, and spoiler alert, I don't care. I know this is like gonna be confirmed. I can say this on my fucking like I will risk my life. I don't want to say that because if I'm wrong, I don't want to die. But the 4th object is 100% the horn from Crescent City.
For sure.
Absolutely positive. I mean,
100%.
it just is. And
And I feel
so,
like that's a very unanimous statement to make. Like,
right.
everyone believes this, basically.
And I'm sure we'll find that out in about like a week when we read the book. So it's
I
fine.
mean, it's a perfect segue into connecting the two. So,
Yes. So that's why we're doing Crescent City right after this. So now we also learn in this part that Brylan is also not the puppet we believe she is. Her and Kyoshi are allies. So again, Brylan, Koshi, it's Koshi. I'm just saying it wrong, whatever. And Baron are all allies. So we're learning a lot of information here. And so basically, we also just tightly wound up. SGM gives us the perfect little plan they have. So they're trying to find this dread trove in order to track down the cauldron for Braylon and likely free Koshi in the process. Then they would like to launch a war with Baron as her ally that would grant them whatever territories they wish, or give some to Koshi depending on what bargain he strikes with Braylon. Okay, so that's what's going on. That's like who we're up against right now. So that is a huge point. We now know this, and now we're like, oh great, here we fucking go again.
yeah.
So that's where we're at.
So now we're back to war plans. And so Elaine is like, okay, well, I'll look for the dread trove with my powers. And Nessa's like, outraged. She's like, are you kidding? No, you're not. Have Feyre do it. Like, this bitch ain't doing nothing. Come to find out, wah, wah, Feyre's pregnant.
Right.
And that's why she has a shield around her.
Mm-hmm.
And bleh. Way to ruin things, Feyre. Fuck you and your happy life.
She's like, I can't do it. I'm pregnant. Everyone's like, oh, okay.
Yeah. So after this whole thing, Feyre grabs Nesta and like takes her into the hallway with her, and she was like, like I told Elaine first that I was pregnant, like before you, so I feel like I should tell you that it's gonna be a boy before I tell Elaine.
Of course, Nesta does not care. Like, why she thought she would is beyond me, to be honest
Yeah.
with you.
And while she's telling her this, the guys in the other room are like screaming and cheering because
like, oh, I guess he just told them.
Yeah.
Which, honestly, I thought that was cute because like I love them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And like, of course, like imagining Rhys, Cass, and Az with a little baby boy, those 3 are fucking hyped right now.
Yeah, of course. And I mean, they've been through so much together. They've been alive for thousands of years. Like, I guess it's like a full circle moment kind of thing. And like,
nice. As much
Faye are so hard to have.
Apparently, even though
like to have children. Which I guess, okay, so in theory it's nice, but like I'm with Nesta on this one, and I'm like, fuck you and your kid, I don't care. Congrats.
Right. Fine. And so we find that out, okay, all this as well. And so now we go back into the House of Wind, and Cassian is pissed because he's like, I just fucking embarrassed myself, which, yes, you did. And so he's like, I'm going to settle this debt. Like, here I come, Nesta. And so Azriel's there, and he's like, turn a blind eye, chaperone. Automatically, if I heard that with my fucking Faye hearing, I would be like, oh my God. I'd like run around the room. I don't know what I would do.
It's going down.
And so Cassian basically gives her like the best oral of her life. Okay, great. And then this part is crazy. He like basically just like gets off of her and was like, we're even now. And then the next chapter opens up by saying, he basically explains Nesta's orgasm and says it is as close to a religious experience as he'd ever have. And I was like, time out.
Jesus.
If you're explaining someone else's orgasm as a religious experience,
take me to church, baby.
I'm like blushing.
Like the Hosier song. I'll worship like a dog in the shrine of your light.
What?
The Hosier song.
I don't know.
You don't listen to Hosier?
Like, take me to church.
Yeah, that song.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that's what it's about.
Wow.
I don't know.
Okay. Ooh, I'm like sweating. Okay, it's your point. Go
Jamie's
ahead.
all hot and bothered.
I know, I am. Go ahead. I can't speak.
Woo! Anyways, so I don't even know what we were talking about. Oh, religious experience, yeah. So to kick things off, Nessa's now going into hand-to-hand combat. So
That really sparked her. She was
yeah,
like, "Oh, I'm ready to fight now."
yeah, they're touching.
They're touching. What the fuck? You're such a fucking freak. All right.
Yeah, I'm the freak. Me. Whatever. So at this point, they're doing hand-to-hand combat, and stop laughing at me. And Nesta asks Gwen if she can look into the dread trove because
Yes, yes, yes.
she's a priestess. She's in the library. She's surrounded by books. She's like, there's got to be some information here. And Gwen's like, yes, I will do anything for you, my best friend. And at this point, she's like, oh, and by the way, like, if you want to come train with me and Cassian, like, you totally should.
And
And
she's like, I don't know.
yeah, Gwen's like, whatever, not too sure. So basically, Nesta devises this plan, right? Because, by the way, we didn't mention this, that Nesta makes like a little sign up
Oh
sheet
yeah, no
and
one
hangs
signs
it like
it.
in the lobby of the library,
No one's
and
joining.
no one signs up. Anyways,
Sad.
so she makes a plan. So she's in the library and she's doing like the forms, like the fighting forms that like Cassian taught her, but she's doing them wrong. But as she's doing them, she's being really obnoxious. So like people would complain about her. So one of the priestesses like rings up Cassie and they're like,
She's like,
"Get your
come get your
girl."
bitch.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like she's too much right now. So he goes down into the library and like he sees Nessa doing the forms and that she's doing them wrong. So he is sitting there and he's like instructing her on how to fix them. And all the priestesses are like kind of looking and like,
And he's being like super
eavesdropping.
gentlemanly and like professional.
Well, yeah, because that's the kind of guy he is. And come to find out that Nessa did this as like a ploy to like show the priestesses that like if you're gonna come train, like it's gonna be very professional, like you won't feel uncomfortable, like he's a good guy kind of thing. And next thing we know, Nessa comes into the library the next day and Gwen's name is on the sign up
Oh, I
sheet.
got the chills. It's like so nice. I love that.
So cute.
And so Nessa's pumped. And so now she goes back to Windhaven. I forget why they go on like an errand. And she goes to Emery's shop and we meet Emery's asshole cousin Bellius. He'll be relevant. Just know he's an asshole. He was like drunk and being obnoxious. Okay, fine. So then Nesta asks Emery to train, and she's like, I don't know. She's kind of like, I'm not sure. I don't really love this. Same kind of hesitancy that Gwen had and reluctance. She's not like super strict in her no to train. She's like, you could tell there's like some like back and forth in her mind.
Yeah, like she wants to, but like something's holding her back.
Mm-hmm.
So Cassian then meets with Eris, and Eris makes him feels like shit. Makes him feel like shit. There we go. That's the word. And he comes back to the house. He's obviously visibly distressed, and Nesta like hates that like he looks like this, and he's going through whatever it is that he's going through.
How do you solve that?
She gives him head at the dinner table. Under the dinner table.
Right, literally crawl under that fucking bitch and is like, please hold.
It's like bold move. And then as comes in.
Well, like right as they're about to have sex, like he like gets
things were getting hot, things were gonna escalate at the dinner table, and as comes in.
And he literally says, good evening. And you're like, what? And then Nesta feels obviously super fucking awkward. It's like, I'm going to bed. Good night, guys. Like, bye.
Yeah.
And so Cassian looks at Azrael and he's like, thanks for that. And he goes, I don't know what you're talking about. And he literally says, asshole. And Azrael goes, Cassian, do not show all your hand at once. And he goes, what's that supposed to mean? And then Azrael says, save something for later. And then
not as giving Cassian sex advice.
Right. And then Cassian's like, stop being such a busybody. And Azrael goes, you let her suck your cock in the middle of the dining room at a table I'm currently using to eat my dinner. I would say that entitles me to an opinion. And Cassian goes, fair enough. Like, what
a guy interaction.
Yeah, it's like a typical ass. I mean, I don't know how typical, but like, yeah, amazing. So we love that. Fantastic. Again, Azrael, you're seeing more of him than any book combined, and it's great. I'm loving every second of it.
Mm-hmm. Me as well.
And so then after this fantastic scene ends, next morning, Emery's at training. So you kind of were like, of course she is. You know what I'm saying? It's like, whatever. And so Rhys comes to training that day as well, and they're all kind of like, hey.
But she comes to training because Nesta tells Cassie to give her spices because she was like, when Nesta went to see Emery, and she invited her in for lunch in her shop, and Nesta's like, oh my god, this food is so good. And Emery's like, yeah, like we don't really get like really any spices up here. It's really hard, so I try to savor them as much as I can. So she has Cassian give her the
And then
spices,
she's like, damn.
and
So
she's
she
like,
goes,
I gotta go. Say thank you at least.
yeah. So she
Oh,
goes to training. Oh, little besties.
fucking love them.
And so Rhys is at training, and like Rhys is there, and he literally goes to Cassian, and he's like, I don't know what you fucking people are doing up here, but it reeks of sex in this entire house. Like, what is going on? And Cassian's like, he's like, I don't know, I don't kiss and tell. And Rhys is like, I'm leaving. Goodbye. Like, he's literally like, I hate all of you. Everyone just deal with yourselves. Like, and then he laughs and he goes, I told Azrael playing chaperone would be absolutely useless. Because they all know that, like, Nesta and Cassian are, like, hot for each other.
Yeah. And there's been talk about it in the previous books.
And so at this point, Rhys also, after they make little jokes, tells Cassian that Nesta has to look for the trove. They want to use Elaine as like a threat over like Nesta and be like, well, if not, Elaine's gonna do it. And then Cassian like defends her and he's like, don't fucking do that to her. Like, she's making progress. Like, please leave her alone. You know what I'm saying? Like, she's trying. You know what I'm saying?
Which is funny because, like obviously Cassian is seeing Nesta in real time and none of them are. So Cassian really is like the only lifeline that like Nesta has to them. And, Cassian's trying to do his shit with her and like, get her on track, like sticking their noses in basically. It's like, bro, like let me do my job. I was tasked and I will deliver. So a little bit more into, this Cassian and Nesta thing. Nesta has another nightmare. And in the book, like we get like from Cassian's point of view, he's like saying that he feels like something's wrong, something's off. So he goes to her room and lo and behold, she's like mid nightmare, which allusion to their bond. Like, how else would you know? I mean, it's a giant freaking house.
Right. And so I agree with that. And I think as you're talking and saying it, I think that's part of it. But I also think he explains like the like sense of power. And I think it also could be partially their bond, but also partially like the amount of power she's emitting. I think like something is fucking wrong. You know what I'm saying?
That's true.
Because I think even Rhys goes there. Like I think like somehow he's in the room.
Yeah, because she's like in this ball of light or something.
Yeah, and I think this is crazy because it's a parallel to Rhys and Feyre. The whole nightmare, who's saving who from the nightmares, is like a super reoccurring theme in this series.
Yeah.
But after they get her out of the nightmare or whatever, this is when we see her power. She's in this like silver flame, LOL the book. In this like silver flame, whatever, and then Rhys is like, oh, her power is pure death.
Yeah.
So you're like, ah, fuck. Like that's not good.
No.
Like that can't be good for anyone.
Spooky.
And so yes, we find that out. And again, I agree with Hallee. I think when you said that, I was like, oh, it could be like their bond. But I also think like she was fucking shit up as well. Could be a little bit of both.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And Rhys is kind of like on guard. He's like, oh shit, like this is not good. This is not okay. Rhys obviously feels a certain way about Nesta, and like now this is like another reason for him to be like, stay away, like she's not good. Also, I just want to, note at this point that Rhys was really pissing me off with Feyre. I guess she's pregnant and whatever, but you're annoying, bro. Like you literally watch her 24/7 and you have this invisible bubble around her. And this is like your main priority. Do men act like this in real life? I don't think so. And like, just like, we already know how I feel about children and stuff. So it's like, I'm like gagged, like I'm getting me out of here.
We also find out here why he's being a little bit extra dicky and overprotective.
Okay,
he tells Cassian or whatever.
So basically, they find out that Feyre's baby has wings, but Feyre obviously doesn't have wings. So the baby is like a true Illyrian baby because that's what Rhys is. He's an Illyrian.
Well, he said when they made the baby, she had her like shape-shifting wings out, but her like uterus and like her cervix isn't like an Illyrian woman's.
Yeah.
So that's problematic.
Like so essentially if Feyre has this kid and she's in this body that she's in right now, she's gonna die because it won't be able to get through the birth canal and she'll bleed out.
And then they tell him like, why can't she shift back? But the healer was like, if she shifts now, it'll also harm the baby.
Yeah.
So it's like a whole debacle. Now, what part really bothers me going off Hallie's part, Rhys tells Cassian, like, do not tell Feyre. I'm not telling Feyre. Feyre has no idea about this even happening. My issue with this, which I will stand on this hill as well, is that, and everyone talks about this online as well, since when is Rhys and Feyre like not a team? He never hides things from her. It's weird that he's doing this.
Okay, wait, this is amazing that you brought this up because this wraps into the evil Rhys theory.
I didn't really look into it.
Oh my god, I've been waiting for this. Amazing. So basically the evil Rhys theory is that like Rhys is actually evil and he set this whole thing up so that he could have Feyre. So there's all this, in the books before this, Tamlin's the bad guy because he's controlling Feyre. He doesn't let her do anything, yada, yada, yada. But Rhys is supposedly the bad guy, but he's giving her freedom. He's introducing her to things, letting her come along, yada, yada, yada. But in this book is the first time that we really see, like you
his
said,
mask is slipping. Like,
yes.
interesting.
Yes, it's super interesting. I mean, I don't believe in it. I don't think that's the case, but it's super interesting that maybe it is a thing. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with the evil Rhys theory, but again, I think it's a point where I'm like, yeah, like you never, but I don't know. Because again, I was going to say, like, oh, he never did this, but that's not true because he hit a lot of things, like with the adder when it like attacked her.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, I kind of set that up. So or like when they were mates. So, like, I don't want to say like Rhys is like a bad and like abusive partner, but like he definitely has in the past hidden some things from her and neglected to mention things. So maybe it's not that out of pocket, but I think that was all in the beginning when they weren't even mates yet.
Yeah.
I think that
Well,
she would
technically, they were always mates.
well, right, but like it wasn't like they didn't know and they weren't like romantically involved yet.
Yes.
I think at this point, when that's your wife, you would imagine that like they would fucking tell you this.
Yeah, but I think that's the thing is like he's so in love with Feyre and like Feyre is his life. Like they make this bargain that if one of them dies, they're both gonna die, right? So
Right.
I think he's still trying to wrap his head around it and also probably try to make plans in the meantime that in case things go south.
And he does say that, and he even says like, "I don't want to stress her more because then it'll put like her even in more physical danger." I just don't love it.
No.
I don't think he's like a fucking dickhead. I'm just saying, I'm like, that wasn't like do better. Like you've been good like so consistently for so long. Like since you guys like were married, like the mate bond solidified. Like you haven't done this bullshit, so like don't fucking do it now.
Yeah.
And like she wouldn't want this either, which we will talk about later. And so okay, so fine. So we know that we're hiding this from Feyre. Now we all know, but not Feyre. And so we're down at the river house. Nesta's going to begin scrying. So Nesta goes into Rhys's mind and tells him mind to mind, like, don't worry, I'm not going to tell Feyre. And Rhys is like, thank you. And that's like their only moment of like solidarity, of like nice
civility.
Yeah, between them. And it's kind of nice to see. So now Nesta starts scrying and she gets stuck. Like she's like stuck in the power, like how it has happened multiple times. And to get her out of this, Cassian decides to make out with her in front of everyone. Fine. I mean, it works.
Me, Nesta.
Yeah, it works. So, okay. And so after this, we find out that so she scried specifically for the mask in the Dread Trove. And so she finds out the mask is in the Bog of Orid, which is in the middle. So it's in that spooky little land. And so we're going to have an adventure now. I'm ready.
So it's you look like one of those like inflatable balloons that like swing like in the air like in front of like car dealerships and stuff. All right, that's enough. So they go to the bog, and by they I mean Cassian, Azriel, and Nesta. And so Az like goes off and he like doesn't come back, or he's like attacked or something.
Yeah, like it's like they're flying over and it's like mad spooky and misty and like it's just like beckoning to them.
Yeah.
And like Cassian goes to like look and tell Azriel like let's go left, and Azriel's gone. And you're like, oh.
Yeah, so Cassian's freaking out, right? So they land and Cassian throws Nesta up in a tree and he's like, if I'm not back in 30 minutes, like go for help or something like that.
I think he just tells her he might, but he's like, don't fucking leave, basically. Like, I'll come back.
Yeah. So he leaves and now Nesta's like sitting in that tree and she's like, oh shit, like what's going on? Time's passing, haven't seen them, I'm nervous, yada yada. So as expected, Nesta climbs down the tree and
which, again, this woman just basically learned how to balance. Like, do you think you're the best person? She's like, I gotta go save them. Like, okay, I'm sorry, but if Cassian and Azriel don't come back because whatever is happening happens, if that killed them,
how are you gonna live?
Right. Like, do you really feel... Anyways, I mean, you're just an idiot. I get maybe you're like all in love.
You're an idiot.
She's like, that's the best oral sex I've ever had in my life. I can't let that go.
I gotta get him back. So Nesta goes down the tree. She's like looking around, and she comes up to like this river or like lake.
It's like a swamp. So I think it's just like there's like patches of land and water everywhere.
Yeah. So she like goes up and she's grabbed and she's dragged underwater by a kelpie, and this kelpie's like sticking its tongue down her throat. It's like a wet fish, and it's like snarling.
It's like making out with her, but it's like biting her face. Oh, sorry, at the same time.
Yeah, it's very gross.
No.
What was that face?
I don't like it. Well, and I think she describes the tongue as like a dead fish in her mouth. I literally was like,
wait, have you ever seen those TikToks of like the goats and like their tongues are like, like you ever see those videos? Like that's what I'm God, that's what I imagine the Kelpie looked like. Are we please stop doing that?
okay.
Anyways, so she's getting dragged by this Kelpie. She's being assaulted by this Kelpie, and she's like, in her head, she's like, somebody please
You're
help.
saying it so nonchalant. You're like, she's being fucking assaulted. I don't know.
And so in her mind, she's like calling out, like, please, please, please. And guess what? She sees this shiny thing in the water, and the thing goes and freaking snaps right onto her face. And guess what? It's the mask. So she like fucking arises out of the water like a fucking
Well, hold on, not yet. Time out.
Greek god.
Okay, you're saying my part.
Oh, sorry.
Wait, she also kills the Kelpie. That's important.
Oh yeah, she did kill the Kelpie.
Now
I was just so scared.
Hold on. So while Nesta's been gone, psycho, we mentioned they have to have the big reveal, you know?
Oh yeah, sorry.
Backtrack. And so while Nesta's been gone, Cassian and Azriel were totally fine because of course they were. And they find the Autumn Court soldiers. Now they're all being funky and weird, and they're just like attacking them.
They're like in a trance.
And they're super aggro. Like they're like, must die.
Super aggro.
That was this weekend. I literally the other day we said super aggro like so much this weekend. And I went to go text Ryan the one day and almost said super aggro, and I was like, he would be like, who is this woman? Like, no, not
See, like, I'm not down for aggro. I say aggy.
Okay, well, anyways, these soldiers are super aggy, and they're trying. I hate it more.
You don't like aggy?
No.
Okay.
I don't. Whatever. They're fucking like steroided up, and they're like, whatever. So they're trying to kill him. So they kill most of them, but leave 2 alive to be like, we need to like torture and interrogate them. Okay, fine. So now they are like, we have to go find Nesta. We're all good. Just took them a little bit of time to kill all these soldiers. So now they go and they find the water and they find her scent where she was dragged in. Her like, are you fucking kidding me, Nesta? Like, you couldn't have stayed in the tree. So now Cassian's like, Nesta!
Yeah.
Like, no!
Like how she was last book. Cassian!
Right. Same vibe. Same thing. And so now they're standing there looking for her. And now you can go ahead.
Yeah, and then they're looking for her, and all of a sudden she rises out of the water like Poseidon. Like, she's got the mask on. Oh, Jamie's gonna do a reenactment. Go for it. That's with a mask on, like crazy. And it's not just that though. It's not just that. Then all of a sudden, all these dead creatures from the river also rise up with her, and they're like
decayed face soldiers and shit.
Yeah, like Walking Dead type shit, and they're like, "Holy cow, she found the mask, bro!
Holy cow!"
I can imagine them like, "Bro, you did it! She did it!" You know?
Yeah, like pumped. I think they're also like scared. I think Cassian's like a combination of like scared and also like, I want to fuck her.
That's my girl.
Yeah, not even that. I think he's like, I am so turned on right now. It's crazy. And yeah, so now they leave there because they're like, we've had quite enough of this place. And so they go back and they bring Rhys the 2 soldiers.
They keep the 2 soldiers because they want to torture them.
Yeah.
They want to torture them for information. Classic tactic. Thank you for that. And Azriel, of course, he's like the torture master, which is fucked up because like he was tortured his whole life, and the fact that like that's his job now is kind of a little unsettling.
He's like, he loves it. He's fine.
He's like, ha 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 ha.
Right.
Ew. Anyways, and there's like this weird, like they're in a weird fog. Basically, like I said, like they're in a trance. So they're like, we need to get Hallee out here.
And so they're doing like a spell. Like, what's up with them?
Yeah.
So like they can't get anything out of them.
No.
Like, they're like doing the most torture, and they're like not breaking.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, something else is up.
So they call for Hallee, and then also, which is very intriguing, is that they find out that the Kelpie speaks the old language. Because I think Nesta says like, oh, he was like, didn't he like say, or did he? Rhys
She couldn't understand him, and so Rhys goes into her mind, like watches the memory, and then like shows it to Amryn, basically. Yeah,
and they find out that the Kelpie speaks like the old language that hasn't been spoken in 15,000 years. Easter egg.
15,000 is gonna be a big number, so just keep in mind we'll try to mention anytime they mention 15,000 as much as humanly possible.
Yeah. And we end this whole nice, lovely interaction with Cassian saying, "All right, let Lady Death rest," or something like that.
And she's like, "It's not funny," and he's like, "I find it catchy." And I'm like, "You're so cute." Like, but again, as like quirky and kitschy as that is, I think it's a way that he's like, "I'm not fucking scared of you. Like,
Yeah.
don't worry about it. Like, you
I'm
can
not
pop."
afraid of you.
Yeah, like, but I think for her, like, as much as like it's not funny, like he's not gonna like back down to her. And I
No.
think that she's also like, "Damn, okay." Like he's making a joke about it. He's like, "Your power doesn't bother me. Like,
Yeah.
you can be your best, biggest, badass self, and I'm gonna be like, I will pop off right next to you."
Yeah.
Which I'm like, we all need that.
Mhm.
Pop off.
Amazing.
And so she gets back, and the house is like caring for Nesta. It's doting on her. It's like, "Here, girlfriend, here's a bath, a book, and some food. You had a long day. You were like being attacked by a kelpie. You were raising dead. Like, you need some slippers."
Yeah.
And so Cassian comes in, and they're both like, "I thought you were dead, and I thought you were dead." And of course, they're like, "Well, now we must have sex."
Yeah.
And so
And now we commence sex.
yes. And so Nessa's like, "Only sex, Cassian." And he's like, "Okay," until they have sex. Now, super big parallel, of course, to Rhys and Feyre. Because Feyre also was like, "I want fun." And he was like, "Okay." And so after they have sex, again, it's pages and pages long. It's quite amazing. Recommend. I will not be telling you all about it because that would make me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And so afterwards, Cassian gets up and he's like, "Thanks for the ride, Ness." And then he leaves. And now she's upset and she's like, "We didn't even cuddle." And
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, how I yelled at Feyre in the first book when she was like, "Why does he think I only want sex?" I'm like, "'Cause you fucking said it."
Yeah.
Now Nesta was like, "Only sex," and then Cassian leaves, and she's like, "You didn't cuddle me?" No,
No.
of course he fucking didn't. And mind you, Cassian's leaving, and he's like, "Oh, I wish that like I could stay, but she only wants sex, so I guess I can't." Like, these girls are fucking idiots.
These girls ain't saying what they want.
Also, when you have a Rhys or a Cassian in front of you, how dare you just not take everything they want to offer you? I mean, asinine, but
Yeah.
fine.
I mean, that's besides the point. But
I'm heated about it.
Jamie's very upset that Nesta did not, experience Cassian to his full extent.
Well, I mean, she did. She did. But, like, the cuddling.
The whole experience.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like she had the whole experience.
Well, she had a whole, but like,
Like, the whole experience.
Okay, I've had enough of this conversation.
Okay.
So I'm gonna move on. So Nesta's continuing to train. She's training with Gwyn and Emery. It's like their little girl gang, and Cassian's like constructing them. And obviously, there's sexual tension, and the girls are.
That was crazy in my headphones. Is that a sniff?
Yeah, got a little bit of a runny nose.
Oh, shit. I was like, wow.
More power. Anyways, stop laughing at me.
Okay.
I'm trying to say important stuff here.
Mm-hmm.
So Gwen and Emery are like, oh, like you guys are like together, right? Like you
you're
guys,
banging, right?
yeah. It's just so like totally like amazing. Love them. And you can kind of see like their friendship, like the girlhood is like developing like within them, and it's just like cute to see because Nessa was so not about this like 200 pages ago.
Right. Yeah, it's nice to see her have like a connection with literally anyone.
Yeah.
And she hates the inner circle so much. I think it's nice. Like she just wanted to make her own.
Yeah.
Which is fine. Good. Make your own little girl gang.
Yeah.
I support it. Just have any kind of anything.
Have one friend. So basically, we're gonna end the book with Gwyn showing Nesta and Emery how to do something called mind stilling, which is basically, in layman's terms, meditation. And it ends with a cute little quote, and it's like, "I am the surf. I am the rock against which the surf crashes."
Yeah, which like we love an empowered woman.
Yeah,
Agreed.
and so here we can kind of see that like for Nesta, like physically and mentally, things are switching. I think it just shows that like she's. It's not like a coming of age story, but like she's kind of out of the deepest parts, I guess, of her depression.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I just want to say from the book, after they finish their mind stilling, because Gwyn is like instructing them through it, she goes, "Open your eyes," Gwyn breathed, and Nesta did. And for the first time in her life, she felt utterly settled into her own skin.
Right. And so, yes, we want to end it here because Nesta now has like the physical and mental tools to like get through this, and we start to think that she's making a change. Um, she is on the up and up, but she regresses quite a few times as the
Yeah.
book continues. But I think at first I was like almost upset that like it seems like she made it through and now she's like going to go back, but I think that's also very realistic as far as depression.
Well, that's a testament to how life actually is, right? You have good days and you have bad days.
Right. And so yeah, so she's training, she's feeling better physically, she's eating, she's kind of becoming vulnerable with Cassian. She's now learning mind stilling and starting to like feel calm in her own skin, but she's going to have like some of her worst blow-ups
Yeah.
in this
To
next
come.
episode.
But you can see, like, same thing like with Lucian and how he found the Band of Exiles. I think Nessa's kind of finding her purpose now
Yeah,
with
exactly.
her, with Gwen and Emery.
In her big blow-ups, she has remorse, which she's never had before.
Yeah, she does feel bad afterwards.
So we're gonna talk next book. Next book is gonna, or not next book, sorry. Next episode is gonna be a lot with Nesta's journey, but also the plot that we're starting to get set up with the Dread Trove and the Illyrians, and the training is going to all come to a crazy head. So it's gonna be crazy.
So yeah, that was the first part of A Court of Silver Flames. We hope you laughed along with our
God, guys, I'm sorry
craziness.
about today. Jeez, but we love you.
Thanks for listening. And we'll see you guys next week while we cover part 2 of Silver Flames, and we'll finally be done with this freaking series, and then we'll head on to Crescent City.
Love it. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.